Hello everyone, Nick again here, and today we are going to be doing chapter 1 of my book, The Dragonstorm Crisis. So we're just going to dive in right away here. Hendrik Storm. 1 year until the Dragonstorm Crisis. Once this valley was home to the dragons. One could see dragons of every color and shape flying across its skies. But that was a long time ago, before the shattering killed almost all the dragons, and almost all other life in the Shattered Kingdoms. Such times were long before Hendrik was born. Hendrik was one of the many orphans that lived and worked in the small town of Gishart. Orphans made up most of the population of Gishart, after all. Gishart was an orphanage town, a place where people sent unwanted orphans, or even just unwanted kids, so they could be put to work and made more useful. Gishart was no different, and Hendrik, along with dozens of other children of various ages, rode on carriages guarded by the older overseers, many of whom were former orphans themselves, as well as a company of Berulian mercenaries that served as the city's closest thing to a proper military force. Normally, they would remain at town while the children did their work, but there have been increasing sightings of orcs recently, and as much as the children of Gishart were unwanted, they would not be of use to anyone dead. The children were going hunting for dragon eggs. Not real ones, of course. Any dragon eggs have disappeared long ago, but that didn't stop tourists, the Lave revisionists, and a myriad of other groups coming here to purchase the shiny rocks the children passed off as dragon eggs. It would have been fun if it wasn't for the whips at their backs and the depressing clientele. Hendrik never really saw the point in dragon egg hunting, but he couldn't deny that somehow this useless project produced money and put a meager meal in his belly every now and again. However, the meagerness of the rations is why he planned on sneaking off again to train with Captain Treggy of the Berulian Mercenary Company. Treggy had started training Hendrik about a year ago, and he had gained some skill with the sword. Not quite enough to earn a commission with her group, but she said he was getting close. She'd been saying that for quite a while now, but it was the only hope that Hendrik had to escape this hell. So he tried to push his doubts at the back of his mind as he snuck off. The main overseer, Marinus, was busy trying to harass some girls as they worked, so he did not notice Hendrik sneak away. Hendrik had tried to stop Marinus before once, but all it had earned him was a black eye. But considering the girl disappeared shortly thereafter, perhaps he made it off lucky. He might have to leave Marinus a gift in the form of a sword to the gut when he finally leaves. It was as he was daydreaming of the murder of Marinus that Hendrik tripped over a large glowing rock. Perfect for a mock dragon egg for his quota today. He went to grab it quickly, but it seemed off. Alive, almost. Hendrik shrugged that feeling off and continued on to the clearing where he and Treggy did their training. "You're late again," Treggy said as she threw a practice sword at Hendrik. "Sorry, Hendrik started, but was quickly cut off. "No excuses. We have no time for excuses. The company is leaving, and I want you to come with us." Hendrik didn't believe his own ears, and got a strike in the face that snapped him out of his shock. "Not if you fight like a Tamaran peasant, though," Treggy taunted. That was all Hendrik needed to hear. Swords clashed as the two of them danced across the field. Eventually, Hendrik scored his first ever strike on Treggy. His reward for this achievement was a quick kick to the gut that sent him sprawling onto the floor. He saw something fly towards his face and was just barely able to catch it. A sword. A real sword. The metal felt strange in his hand, having only ever used a practice sword. Pick it up. Score hit on me again, and with that you will have earned your place amongst the company, Tregi said as she charged him. Hendrik barely had time to deflect the first blow after getting to his feet. He was exhausted, and not being used to a real sword didn't help him either. It wasn't long until Tregi scored her first hit on Hendrik, leaving a scar across his cheek, followed soon after by another across his chest. "Do you yield?" Tregi asked. "Never," was Hendrik's response as he charged at her, sword flying. The thought of failing now drove him to fight harder than he had ever had, and soon he was starting to push Tregi back as he felt an unusual feeling of vigor wash over him. Tregi was in full retreat when Hendrik scored the first blow. A blow to the face that took a chunk of her hair, left a facial scar, and took part of her nose. Tregi was knocked to her feet, and Hendrik felt like a passenger in his own body as he swung again, going for a decapitation strike. Thankfully, even with his new strength, Tregi had decidedly more experience with the sword, and was able to disarm Hendrik moments before disaster. "I yield. You win," she said, finally breaking the silence as Hendrik stood there in shock. "You have the heart of a Varulian in you, Hendrik. Fight like that, and the Tamarans will never know what hit them." Slowly catching his breath as he recovered from the shock of almost murdering the only person he really considered a friend, Hendrik could only respond with, "What?" "Brule and Tamara have gone to war once more. The company has been recalled. We must answer. Honor and duty demands it. We are the heirs to the Empire. We have no choice but to obey this summons." Hendrik couldn't hide his excitement. He was finally going to get out of here. Sure, he'd have to fight in some border war, but he would get to see the world and leave Gishart far behind. "Pack your things. We leave in the morning," Tregi called after Hendrik as he broke out in a run to get ready. He made it about halfway before he found himself on his ass, having hit by something very large. "Where the fuck do you think you're going, Hendrik?" The unfortunately familiar voice of Marinus greeted him as he slowly had his sight go back into focus. Marinus wasn't alone, as he had half a dozen overseers with him. Even with a sword, Hendrik recognized the odds were greatly against him. "Come on, Marinus, he's just a boy. Do we all really need to be here?" one of them asked before he was drowned out by the sound of one hacking up blood. "Serves you right for hanging around that strange priest. And yes, we need to kill him, so our stories match up. That Varulian bitch Tregi cares for him," Marinus says as he gives one of the overseers a slap on the back. Hendrik realized then that he was dead, or at least a dead man walking. He could not defeat them all, but he wasn't defenseless. He still had his sword Tregi gave him. His dreams of a new life may be dashed out, but the gods help him. If he was to die today, he would make sure to take that bastard Marinus with him. That would be his last act, he was sure. Long had he longed for this moment, so just about every other orphan in Gishart. As Hendrik rose to face Marinus, he heard a loud screech and saw his former tormentor burst into flames. And that is the end. Chapter 1.